What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode for the men in Uncaged. And actually, I guess this one could be for the men, the women, whoever wants to take something from this, apply it to their life, and become a better person. Specifically, the reason I brought that up is because I'm going to be talking about relationship things, relationship hacks, relationship communication, relationship pain points, relationship struggles. Nothing is really off limits here. And specifically, I want to kind of give a little bit of a recap on what the Uncaged Couples Retreat was like, what we learned, what some of the big takeaways were, and also just kind of really encourage people to know that we're not alone. I don't care if you're a husband and some of the issues or struggles or just things that you would desire out of your wife, or you're a wife and you're looking for things, wanting things, earning for things from your husband. I just want you to imagine what it's like to sit in a room intimately with 10 other couples and get feedback from people from all walks of life, all types of relationships, blended couples that have been together for multiple decades, couples that are both individually entrepreneurs, couples that actually work together in the same business as entrepreneurs, and everything in between. So if you're new to the channel, welcome to the Uncaged podcast. This is the journey to the top 1%. And we like to say, how do you get there? It's by becoming 1% better daily. So with that said, one of my biggest things was actually pretty powerful. Kyle Mann, our videographer, he's just an incredible human being. And prior to him getting a interview with me, just some of the homies sitting around chopping it up. He's like, man, what was your biggest takeaway? And it was really interesting because we did something very different on this retreat. It being our first couples retreat, we had a questionnaire that went out. We do questionnaires every retreat to really get to the bottom of what our big ass problems are that we're looking to learn from the retreat, take home and apply to our life so that we're not repeating the same thing over and over. And with this one specifically, we created anonymity by removing all identifying sections. So there was no name, no phone number, no email. We literally had no idea who submitted what. So everything was an anonymous submission where they were able to get very personal, and they did, and they got extremely personal. And it was actually kind of humorous because the way we collected them, we did not really allow anyone to say, oh, I got mine done, or whatever the case is. And you go and check the questionnaire submissions and there's one, form submitted. Obviously that would eliminate, the anonymous submission and let us know who it was. So we didn't want any of that. And so through this process, we allowed several days to go by before we checked the submissions, where we got to see that a majority of those submissions had been submitted. And along the lines, I was kind of joking with Heather, and I was like, hey, what did you get your submission, submitted? And she was like, oh, shit. She's like, well, if I do it now, are you going to know who did it? And it didn't click with me then, but throughout the process of the next few days as we were preparing for the event, showing up to the event, me reading all the total questionnaires so that I could really help compile the way these segments were going to go at the event, it hit me she didn't mean anything by it. And we communicate pretty strongly with each other and are in a relatively good space. Obviously, it can always be better, and we're always striving to look for new ways to improve, which is why we're doing these couples retreats. And it really kind of hit me because not only did I obviously know who it was at this point, and she said some things that we're strong enough that she would have said these things to a certain degree, to me, if the conversation had come up or if I had pried enough. But I could also tell that there was a placebo effect that was happening with her, where even though she probably knew that I was going to know who submitted that. She still had some sort of a weight lifted off her shoulders where she could kind of take it to the next level as far as the vulnerability, the transparency, and really just the genuine feelings that she had. And it hit me like, why is our relationship not strong enough that we can't have these conversations openly, in an attempt to really try and work on things? And so like that was probably my biggest takeaway going into the retreat before we had even gotten there. And it was a massive one. Like truly, that is a earth-shattering, realization that I personally had through this experience. So we get there and it just, everything's going amazing. I mean, one of the most gut-wrenching in the best ways, comment came out from Chelsea Cooper, one of the quietest people that was there, if not the quietest. And she said, never in my entire life would I have imagined flying all over the country to spend a weekend in a house full of strangers and never felt so safe. And that really set the tone for the true vibe that everyone emitted in the house. I mean, multiple testimonials as people walked in. They literally just, if it was family from the moment that they walked through the door, that they don't even get, greetings like that when they go to like family reunions and stuff. So it was just a real good reassurance that we were headed the right way and that we were just surrounded by good people, which set the tone for on Saturday being able to open up and being very, very, very vulnerable with people. I myself even, came out about some stuff that like I truly, everything that I've been through, I would go over 100 times again to be in the same position I am with the same people that I'm in. And just, I believe that it's made me who I am. So unfortunately, you can't control your past. And even if you could, would you? Because it does make you who you are today. But we got to see a very, very strong, series of common denominators of people that have gone through extremely traumatic pasts, and sit around with a genuine desire to see what they could pull from that to make them better people, leaving this retreat than showing up. And as we kind of kicked everything off, one of the first things that I brought to everyone's attention is, while we had, 24 people there really wasn't that much of differentiating topics to speak about. Now, when the questionnaires went out, there was like 6 big overarching topics that I really wanted to get to the root of what these people's pain points were, but while simultaneously asking them genuinely, what do they think about their spouse? Like, what do you think your spouse is actually submitting? So a lot of it was like, what is it that you're hoping to take away personally from this? Well, as what do you hope that your spouse takes away? Also, there was, a series of questions that was more or less like, what do you believe is your biggest fault? Like, what is it that you believe that you need to work on the most? And then obviously, like, simultaneously, what do you think your spouse needs to work on the most? And then there was also like a lot of positive reinforcement too. Like, what do you think that you do very, very well as far as the relationship dynamic and your spouse and things of that nature? And it was really cool because we start to see a lot of synergy that like a lot of the couples there were dealing with the same things, going through the same things. And it opened up the opportunity for us to round table and brainstorm these on how do we work through this, because some of them had figured parts of it out, others had figured out the rest, and how do we kind of put all this together and put our heads together to figure out, like, moving forward, how do we just operate better? How do we operate more efficiently as a couple? And so that was really, really cool. The other thing that was really, really rewarding after reading these questionnaires is, while people were there to obviously work on themselves, and as a desire, we could all be better and our spouses could always be better. As there was a desire for your spouse to be better, there was equal as much conviction and just excitement and love and joy in those questionnaires on what they appreciated out of them. So while you're saying, I wish my spouse could be better at XYZ, it's not coming from an antagonistic approach. It's not coming from a blaming approach where the other person needs to become defensive. It's just a genuine, like, I want this for them. I want this to be incredible for them. I want this to be a beautiful experience for them. I want them to get this because I want that for them. Not necessarily because I selfishly want a better spouse, right? Heather selfishly, I'm sure, wants a better Zack. But she also wants a better Zack for Zack. She wants me to work on my defensiveness, not because obviously it would cause us to be able to work through fights better, more efficiently, and things of that nature. But like, she doesn't want me that, aggressive towards things, whether that's her, whether that's one of the Uncaged guys, whether that's a mentor, whether that's a mentee, whether that's a peer, whether that's a client, customer, what have you. She just wants that for me. And so it was a beautiful thing to be able to see that. And throughout this process, we got to see people really, really open up. And not really even just open up for us, but open up for their spouses, to say things that their spouses have been wanting to hear for so long. And it wasn't, again, surrounding yourself with, all these other couples, 10 plus other couples who are going through the same things. We were able to get to the bottom of a lot of common denominators that were causing issues within relationships. And one of them that I wanted to share with you guys is like, sometimes we're using the wrong terminology. Like, for example, one of the conversations came up was like, hey, I want, my husband to be more empathetic. And in his responses to like, hey, like, I can't be more empathetic for you. She, at the time, was using the word empathy, empath, empathetic. I don't want to say out of context because she knew what she meant. But the disconnect was the husband was literally referring to the actual, description of the term itself. And whereas he was right, he had not been through some of those specific situations. Therefore, he truly can't be empathetic towards that one extremely specific situation. And as the conversation started to progress, we started to explain certain things. Like, for example, I've never been addicted to drugs. Absolutely not. But I am addicted to caffeine. In the mornings, my routine is like, I truly am addicted to the coping mechanism of sitting there with a hot cup of coffee and allowing my mind to relax and stuff. And like, that really is like some chemical releases in your brain of like feel good feelings. And like, so there can absolutely be an addiction to something that is not a harmful substance. And while you may not have experienced going through addiction to that level, you can relate to the thought process of needing something so bad and like so much to your soul. And so as we started to unpack some of these words that, one person would use, the other one would respond differently, not as they really had seen that conversation going, where we got to really get to the true meaning. Like, why do you say some of these words the way you do? Even more so, like, for example, one of the ones we all got on that, again, all these couples are kind of going through very similar things, was like, I don't care. Whereas the women interpret I don't care as like, I don't care because I don't care enough about you. I don't care enough about the situation to give it my bandwidth. Whereas the translation of the term I don't care from the husband, we believe we're saying, hey, we trust you. Hey, we know you got this. Hey, we know that you can make this decision on your own because we believe in you, and we think that you have all the appropriate information that you need to be able to make an educated decision. So there's a huge disconnect. One word, it's the wrong terminology though, right? We're having a miscommunication on a phrase, on a term, and it's not matching up, and therefore it's causing issues when, the women think that they're correct and taking offense to I don't care, and the men are feeling like they're doing a good job and they're getting that good boy, puppy dog feeling, because like they truly they think that they're being good, and it's not translating the same way. So it was really, really cool to see some of that really come to fruition, and us to be able to work through things. Now, another beautiful thing that happened, and it was really, really incredible, and this is why I pride myself so much in like what we're doing here in Uncaged, and I'm so convicted about surrounding yourself with like-minded men, and women, obviously, but like men specifically, as far as like the Uncaged movement goes, is, after Saturday segments were over, there was probably 4 or 5 couples that stayed up in the kitchen, just shooting the shit, having great sidebar conversations, just having a good old time. We were up until 6 in the morning. Ace's wake up alarm went off while we were just sitting there talking. And through that process, it was really cool because Heather and I ourselves went through a segment where she believes one thing to her soul, and I believe one thing to my soul, that are conflicting experiences. And it was something that I was so passionate and adamant about, because like I see something in Heather that unfortunately she doesn't see in herself, or at least she hasn't yet. She will. And it's like I look up to her, and I love her so much, and I want her to genuinely feel about herself the way I feel about her. And that passion comes across very aggressively. And it was just really great to have other members there that are your accountability partners, to be able to call it how they see it from a place of being genuine and really caring about you. And so like Russell called me out, and he's like, dude, like I see your point and I agree with you, but she has a very, very valid point as well, and I agree with her. And so, it was a shift on like, whereas I'm coming at this with such a loving, genuine in my soul, I was coming at her again. It was aggressive. Like we were loud. We're not yelling at each other, but I'm a loud motherfucker as it is. She's a loud motherfucker as it is. And so like people were getting to see in real time, in real life, in front of their eyes, Heather and I just literally just banging it out on trying to work through an issue where I see so much in her, and I see how incredible she is. And, we are actively still, myself, working through my own past traumas, in my childhood and everything, as well as my wife is. And here we are together, coming together to try and heal each other and be these best versions of ourselves. And so, it was passionate, and it was very convicting, and it was very, it was very polarizing, and polar opposite views. And so it was really nice to have just that shift of perspective. Like neither one of y'all are wrong. It's perspective shifts. And so it was really great to experience that. But not only that, to have the whole mood and the whole like vibe of the event, which was like, all right, cool, now what? Like for me and Heather, cool, y'all are fucking fighting. Now fucking what? Like, how do we move past this, and how do we grow? And like, we came here with a fucking, not necessarily a problem, but we came here with something that we are trying to find solutions through, whether it be one thing, 10 things, a small thing, or a huge thing. And so for us, it was really, really awesome to see implementation of that almost immediately, because the conversation got brought back up on Sunday. Again, everyone's sitting there. And this is the power of like being in these rooms, is we were able to get different perspectives from everyone. And it wasn't even really necessarily perspective from someone else that we walked away with. It was the conversation and the way it gets the gears turning in your mind for you to come up to this with the solution to your problems on your own, or in this case, as a couple together. And so it got to the point where like I just blatantly stared my wife into her fucking soul through her eyes, and I was like, what do you need from me? How do we fix this? What is next? And so for her, she has something that like we need to work on actively and to be cognizant of. But then I have a process that I need it to be done by. And so as we started to literally work through this together in real time, in front of everyone, real time, and for ourselves, just out loud, saying it out loud, and being surrounded by people like this, is Heather just wants to know that things that are important to her are important to me. I'm very hyper ADHD. My mind goes a million different miles an hour. I'm getting insane amounts of work done, and it's just, I'm all over the place. And it came to find out that, like, if Heather had something to say to me while I am, and mind you, just to kind of frame the picture here, I work from home. We both work from home. We are in an apartment, so like it is confined spaces. And if I'm in the studio working on something and I go to make myself something food, I might still be in studio or office mind. Like I might still be processing something that I walked out of the office thinking about. So like my bandwidth, I am on I'm using a completely different part of my brain. I am trying to stay in flow state by working through some of the processes that I am trying to work through. And when Heather comes to me about something that is, I'm taking no disrespect towards what she has to think or wants to talk about, but I'm just not in that bandwidth. I'm not on that level playing field as her, because also when my wife comes to me in the middle of the day with a topic to talk about, she's had time to prepare. She's got her notes ready, not literally, but like she has literally processed, all right, cool, I want to talk to Zach about this. This is my desired outcome of that. Here's the process I think needs to happen to be able to achieve it, X, Y, Z, A, B, C. She's ready for the conversation. I'm not. It's a blind side to me. No matter how easy or complex it is, like I'm still being blindsided by it while also distracted because my brain is trying to also continue in this flow state that I have rocking and rolling. And so anyways, when my wife approaches me with that, it instantly frustrates me. Not out of any disrespect to her, but it frustrates me because I was trying to hold on so tight to that flow state. I was trying to hold on so tight to that nugget that I had, that great idea that I thought I had, or whatever the case is. And so I'm trying. And then there's an interruption and I let go. And so for us, on the dynamic that we have right now with me working from home, her working from home, and this also being the location that we live out of and that have to protect his home and have some of these more family-oriented conversations and just life-orienting conversations, I realized that it instantly took me to level 10 because like I'm already frustrated. I lost my train of thought. Now I'm, in my head at the time, I'm fucking having a conversation about shit that doesn't really fucking matter, when in reality, it really, really, really matters to her. And so we got to really come up with an opportunity to find a way to create a compromise where, like, we're going to discuss everything my wife wants to talk about. Everything, Heather, that's important to her, we're going to talk about. But it has to be done in a specific process that works for me so that I can be 100% there for her, right? So like I literally came home, as soon as we got home, I wrote it on our master bathroom mirror, like, what is important to you? So now every night as I'm holding her, as we're getting, ready to go to bed, I ask her like, hey, what's important to you? Like I have now, the way I work, I've gotten my critical tasks accomplished for the day. Everything's checked off. Everything's marked off. I get to set that fucking aside. And I get to know, like, I'm done with work today. And just to kind of give you just a brief, sidebar, like, that is how my brain works. Like, I have to sleep with my phone next to my, on the nightstand, because in the middle of the night, if I feel like I'm going to lose train of thought of something, I won't be able to go to sleep. My anxiety will keep me up because I'm scared that that great idea that I have will leave me before tomorrow. So I have to literally go to my phone, type it into my notes. And then once I do that, once I know that thought process is safe with me, I can then let my guard down and go to sleep. And it's the same kind of concept. It's not that I don't want to know what's important to my wife, but there has to be a process where I can shut my brain down. The anxieties of every other responsibility I have as a man gets to be quieted, and I get to focus on my wife 100%. That's what works for us. Now I'm going to try again. I'm going to try tonight at the dinner table to ask her at the dinner table, because I would rather give her a little bit more undivided attention than like, oh, after we've all gotten relaxed now and we're laying in bed and it's quiet and now, her brain gets to turn off because, Lottie's not up and, overstimulating her. I'm not bugging her, this, that, or whatever, and allow the bed, as safe as that actually is, like allow the bed to be the bed. And we'll see. It might work that was the best place for us to have those conversations where the walls come down and the comfort level is great and we're in a different mindset and thought process. But I'm going, again, for this kind of stuff, there's no one answer that's going to apply to anybody and everyone. So for you, like, try it in the bed, try it in the shower, try it, at the dinner table, try it commuting, whatever the case is, and see what works for you. Because what works for us might not work for you, doesn't work for the next person. So we came to solve a problem. We saw that there was an issue, and we wanted to move into creating a solution to the problem as quickly as possible, which is so awesome about these events and really just the way Uncaged works holistically. So I don't know what you're dealing with, don't know what you're going through, don't know what fights you and your wife are having, whatever the case is. I promise you the communication, the being able to really work through a problem and solution path to the issues that you are facing, working together, being able to communicate with things. And when you start to get stumped on specific terminology, call a timeout. Y'all discuss what y'all think the terminology is, because one of y'all might be taking it way more literal than the other, even though one of you thinks that you're meaning it in the most mindset as possible. The other one still might be taking it in a way that's causing them to get defensive when y'all don't really mean that. Y'all are using the same word, but in two completely different ways. So that conversation needs to be, or that term needs to be broken down and conversated about in a more detailed way. But not only that, like if you don't ever fucking apply anything that you learn, it's literally fucking all for nothing. So like whatever it is you're dealing with, whatever conversation you're about to have with your spouse, be solution minded and not problem minded. Like obviously there's a problem. Otherwise you wouldn't have to have a conversation about it. So we already know that there's a problem. We don't have to beat the problem until it's blue in the face. Now what we got to do is discuss the solution. So now our brain can be more solution focused instead of problem focused. Learn to communicate. Learn to lean in on other people, because I promise you, as much as you think there's other people out there that aren't dealing with the same shit that you are, I promise you there's people that have been through it, will go through it, or are going through it. So guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me on this episode. This is the Uncaged podcast, which is all about the journey to the top 1%, which is by becoming 1% better daily. If you have any other questions about our free group, about our VIP group, anything else that we have going on, critical task accountability program, accountability advisors, or big ass problem coaches, please reach out to myself, any of your favorite pack leaders, or any of the other VIP guys, and we'd be gladly point you in the right direction. Otherwise, check out uncagedcrew.com for any other information, and we'll see you on the next one.